What is going on, guys? My name is Tubby Emu, and tonight's Superstar Shakeup for Smackdown. We've lost a bunch of superstars that people are upset about that went over to Monday Night Raw. People like Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt had made Smackdown his home. He had finally won the title. He was with Randy Orton. He was separated from the Wyatt family, and further dividing him even farther is Bray Wyatt coming over to Raw and Eric Rowan and Luke Harper being kept on SmackDown. It's what I said last year, is Randy Orton is infiltrating, showing Bray Wyatt he doesn't need the Wyatt family, and now it looks like he doesn't have them, because Braun Strowman is on Raw, but he's not in the family. He's doing his own thing, and Luke Harper is feuding, so it seems like with precision he infiltrated his way in, and now he's by himself. Alexa Bliss came over to Raw from SmackDown. Dean Ambrose and Miz and Maryse. Now, the big thing, as I flash the screen right there, that I want to keep in mind is tonight, everybody's saying SmackDown Live is dead. SmackDown Live is dead. There's no way SmackDown Live can recover from this. But currently, guys, they still have Nakamura. They still have Ty Dillinger. They still have the Usos. They still have American Alpha. There's still a lot of people SmackDown Live has, and we're going to go through and give some of my predictions for who I think they can steal away from Raw. They have AJ Styles, which that was the big one. Everybody was saying, AJ Styles, the champ that runs the camp, it's his show. You cannot take him away. Well, we'll have to see and figure out where things go, because as of right now, you still have AJ Styles. You still have Baron Corbin. You still have Chad Gable and Jason Jordan. You still have Dolph Ziggler. There's still a lot of stuff you can do. And they kept Mojo Rawley, which I thought Mojo Rawley really could have headed over to Monday Night Raw. But now let's talk about who they lost. They obviously lost Apollo Crews, Kalisto. So if we look at who they lost, we have to look at who can replace those people. So Rhino and Heath Slater. We lost a tag team. We should get a tag team in return. And my honest prediction here, if you want to help carry the roster, Sheamus and Cesaro, number one. When you draft a tag team like Heath Slater and Rhino, if they don't, work as a tag team, they can split them up. Same thing with Sheamus and Cesaro. That's my number one prediction, is to have Sheamus and Cesaro come over, because Sheamus is that veteran that's been around forever that can help put over some of the younger talents on SmackDown. That's one of the things they're lacking right now, besides AJ Styles, John Cena, Kane, who's running for mayor, who's no longer around. Having Sheamus and Cesaro is huge, because ultimately Sheamus, I'm not going to say Sheamus is going to fade away, but Cesaro is the future, right? Like if Cesaro is the guys like AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Cesaro is in that discussion. So bringing those two over, you're getting two blue chippers for the price of one. It's a tag team. If you are trading from SmackDown, Heath Slater and Rhino, and you're getting Sheamus and Cesaro in return, that's a hell of a trade, in my opinion. Whoever authorized that would actually be pretty dumb. Because if you think about it, that's crazy to me. But let's take a look at who else they lost. So they lost Kalisto and Apollo Crews. So who can replace them from Monday Night Raw? Well, I think very possibly the whole 205 Live division, the whole Cruiserweight division, can be drafted over to SmackDown, because the Cruiserweights right now compete on Raw, and they have to change out the ring all the time. And on SmackDown, they would still have to do that, which makes it even harder, because SmackDown is boom, boom, boom. But 205 Live just taped on the same night, so it would bring down expenses of having to have the Cruiserweights there Monday and Tuesday, where the Cruiserweights would only have to be there on Tuesday. And having Apollo Crews and Kalisto come over, that kind of fills the gap with some Cruiserweights, but allows the up-and-comers, if you have SmackDown, which everybody says is the cool show in the new era, it is the pop-in show, that's where you would want the Cruiserweights to really get that exposure. So having guys like Austin Aries, Neville would be huge. Austin Aries and Neville carrying SmackDown Live would be huge. So I would be perfectly fine with the whole Cruiserweight division getting drafted over to SmackDown, especially with logistics and having them there to be a part of it. Now, in addition to them, I want Brock Lesnar drafted over to SmackDown. I think Brock Lesnar drafted over to SmackDown makes the absolute most sense. Everybody says SmackDown's the biggest show. It's the land of opportunity. Well, what bigger opportunity is there than to face a guy like Brock Lesnar? Bray Wyatt got traded over. Randy Orton is still the champion. He's still on SmackDown, but he's facing Bray Wyatt in a House of Horrors match. Is it for the title? Is it non-title? And if he gets his rematch and he wins the title, he takes it over to Raw, and Brock Lesnar's on SmackDown. Brock Lesnar, and this is what I made the point in my video yesterday, I was talking about time constraints on SmackDown. Time constraints aren't necessarily a bad thing because they do have the best storylines. And the reason they have to have the best storylines and the best stories in general is because you only have X amount of time for like 5, 6, 7 segments. So you have to make sure every single one of them builds up to something. And what happens is, in that time constraint of 2 hours, is you have like American Alpha. Once they won the tag team titles, they weren't on TV for a week or two because there was other feuds they had to focus on first. So having a champion, unlike AJ Styles, Bray Wyatt, or Randy Orton, that's on the show every week, you can feature the Cruiserweight division, the Tag Team division, the United States Championship if Kevin Owens gets drafted, and eventually leads to somebody facing Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, and for him to hold the title. It's the one show that having your champion not be there every week actually makes sense, because from a logistical standpoint, when he shows up on SmackDown, you'll get huge ratings on SmackDown if Brock Lesnar really is the draw. If they're paying him $12 million a year according to Forbes, is you'd want to utilize him over there. Now, the same point, he could stay on Raw 100%. I don't necessarily see him being traded. Last night, Seth Rollins stepped up and said he didn't want to go anywhere, and Kurt Angle's like, as long as I'm the GM, you will not go anywhere. So, in addition to what I just said, Brock Lesnar possibly coming over, I could honestly, legit 100% tonight see Shane McMahon not necessarily turning heel, but like the McMahon family, because she said, as long as I'm the GM, Kurt said, you're staying on SmackDown. Well, if Kurt Angle goes home, and I say go home to SmackDown because I associate Kurt Angle with SmackDown. I know on Raw is where he had a lot of his big moments, the milk truck and everything, but I still think SmackDown is kind of like Kurt Angle. So Kurt Angle and Daniel Bryan switching places and getting Daniel Bryan back up Monday Night Raw and Kurt Angle on SmackDown is a fair trade. And then that would bring over Seth Rollins, which would then put Kurt Angle with American Alpha, which would be fantastic. So if I had to pick one crazy thing to happen tonight, I would say the Superstar Shakeup would not only change the announcers, because as you now know, we have Byron Saxton on SmackDown, which I think is great. Finally got David Otunga the hell out of there. You can go over to Raw. David, I'm not crapping on you, man. I actually kind of like your style half the time, but I'm just glad Byron's finally on the show. So swapping Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle is a straight-up trade. Now, if that was Mick Foley, that would not have been the case, right? Because Mick Foley, I like Mick Foley, big fan of Mick Foley. But it's not a straight-up trade. You have Kurt Angle, Daniel Bryan, 2 fan favorites. Swapping would not be the worst thing in the world, because if the Authority truly runs Raw, and then you have Daniel Bryan going up against him as the B-plus player, you then have the tension between Daniel Bryan and the Authority, which could eventually lead to Daniel Bryan being fired and being able to get out of his contract to go wrestle anywhere, which would be huge. And then Daniel Bryan could go wrestle for a month at Ring of Honor, and then Kurt Angle could re-sign him to the SmackDown brand, and a big F you to the Authority. Think long-term storyline, guys. Wouldn't that be amazing if Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle switch places? Daniel Bryan is the lead of Raw. He's actually an A-plus player. He's not a B-plus player. Triple H and Stephanie get so pissed, they end up doing the one thing. He tanks the show, so he fires them, and then he's able to go and wrestle again. And then he gets re-signed by WWE to wrestle again. Now, I'm not saying he's ever going to wrestle in WWE, or nor should he for his health, but that would be insane way to kayfabe the shit out of people. And honestly, if that storyline happens, WWE, pay me and put me on the payroll. Who else? New Day. Possibility of New Day coming over to SmackDown. I think that would actually be really good. It would help bring some actual big tag teams besides Breezango and Fandango and the Ascension, the Vaudevillains. It would help give people more of a reason to fight, and against an established tag team, not necessarily guys that are still trying to find their footing, because right now it's just the Usos and American Alpha that are established, because you lost the Vaudevillains with Simon Gotch requesting his release, and now you have Aiden English, who I'd love to see Aiden English do his singing gimmick again, going back to the Drama King, which would be huge. Now, WWE.com has teased Braun Strowman. They have teased Big Show coming over. And again, that's not the worst thing in the world, because you can use Big Show on the land of opportunity for guys to eventually beat him and help put over other superstars. He doesn't have to be there every week. and it allows, like I said, with Brock Lesnar, to where he doesn't have to be there every week. And you can still focus on other talents, which is huge and is what you essentially want when you're doing your gimmick. So I could definitely see Big Show being sent over as well. Now, if Braun Strowman went over, it would be the best thing in the world, because then Bray Wyatt is completely 100% separated from the family. He has nobody to rely on. The plan of the book I was writing, Triple H, The Ultimate Control for Power, where you give your power to your friends like Randy Orton, and you have successfully infiltrated, because Bray Wyatt was Triple H's pet project. It went awry. He was never winning. He finally wins the title. The Wyatt family wasn't there to help him. I'm getting too excited thinking about this, man. It really gets me pumped up thinking about this. So to have Braun Strowman as the big beast being headed over to SmackDown, there was a huge feature for Braun Strowman over there. But at the same time, I want Braun to stay on Raw. I think there's a lot he can still do on Raw. And I'd love to see like a Braun versus Bray feud, as crazy as that sounds. In addition to that, let's talk about the women that are possibly going to move over. Right now, the rumors are obviously Charlotte and Sasha Banks. At first, it was going to be Charlotte for Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss came over to Raw. And now you're looking at SmackDown and you're going, well, they lost Mickie James and they lost Alexa Bliss, and some people are pissed about that, but I think Alexa Bliss should be on Raw. I'm glad she's on Raw. But I actually differ a little bit. I don't want Charlotte and Sasha to go over together. I want Charlotte to go over. I want Sasha to stay on Raw, to have Sasha versus Bayley eventually. And then I would like Nia Jax to go over. That's just what I think. I think Charlotte and Nia Jax should go over, in my personal, humble opinion. That's just what I think. The symbolism of Nia Jax laying everybody out, and then Alexa Bliss just standing there kind of passing the torch to her. That's where I think it would be the most beneficial, because having Charlotte and Sasha on the same show over there, they're just they could recreate their feuds, and that's what worries me. I want a fresh set of stuff. Now, they also rumored possibly having Emma go over, and it looks like we're having Dana Brooke versus Emma, which when I was talking about proteges, having Charlotte versus Dana Brooke, I forgot about Emma and Dana actually being the first protege, and then remember what happened to Emma. Other people that could possibly go over, Finn Balor. Now, do I want Finn Balor or Seth Rollins to actually move over? And the answer is, it's tough. Because Seth Rollins, I think, still has more to do on Raw. I think, like he said, he put it out there. But that's where if they swap GMs, I could definitely see him going over. But I think the most likely people to go over are Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, because that right there, you have a fatal four-way. You have Nakamura, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. But those guys, that'll last till at least SummerSlam or beyond, just with all those guys eventually feuding, and especially with Randy Orton having the title. That's a big deal, unless he loses it to Bray Wyatt at the pay-per-view if they actually have a title on the line. And Kevin Owens bringing over the U.S. title is a big deal. Now, the other possibility is, of course, Luke and Karl Anderson, because they can reunite the club over on SmackDown. This would put the club front and center, because you have the Shield essentially right now on Raw as it is, and you have another dominant faction that could be reunited on SmackDown. So you have a lot of different things you can do. Now, there was speculation about the Shining Stars. No, thank you. Just keep them. No, I don't want them. They can be used to put over other people for sure, but I don't necessarily want them over on the show. So that's everything that I've got for you guys. That's who I think could be drafted over tonight. If I was thinking smaller named superstars, like I don't mean smaller names like Kalisto, but if I was thinking about that, it would most likely be the whole Cruiserweight division. I think the Cruiserweight division coming over would be the biggest thing they could possibly do. And then, like I said, Nia and Charlotte, because it allows people to fight Nia for the up-and-coming women on SmackDown like Carmella, people to go up against, have a hard time. And then Charlotte could be the established person that could eventually challenge Naomi or do whatever she's got to do. So I'd love to know your guys' predictions. Who do you think is going to be heading over tonight? Because we're only a couple hours away to seeing what happens and who gets shook up, only on the USA Network. So until next time, guys, it's your boy Tubby. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure to smack that thumbs up button if you did enjoy this video. And until next time, we will see you all later.